इंदिरा जी की हत्या हुई थी तो हमारे देश में कुछ दंगे फसाद हुए। हमें मालूम है कि भारत की जनता के दिल में कितना क्रोध आया, कितना गुस्सा आया और कुछ दिन के लिए लोगों को लगा कि भारत हिल रहा है। लेकिन जब भी कोई बड़ा पेड़ गिरता है तो धरती थोड़ी हिलती है।
Well, viewers, in this context, it may not be out of place to question Mr. Ganju or MJ Akbar's recollection of what transpired. But if Mr. Ganju's statements are true, then they only amplify the thread of betrayal. The first and most glaring one was that despite Bitta Karate, a JKLF terrorist, confessing to the bloodbath, he was let off. Here's what Karate had said: "My first murder victim was Satish Kumar Tikku. Killed him as I got orders from above." Above was, of course, Pakistan. Killed him because he was from the RSS. So there straight away the religious angle comes into this. Everyone gets funds for these killings. Gilani, Yasin Malik, all got paid separately. Viewers, despite this confession, despite naming individuals, these individuals became poster boys. Television studio guests to pronounce their view on India's democracy and the idea of our civilization. And there are many examples, viewers, of Lutyens' media phoning at the feet of these individuals. Bitta Karate, who was also called Farooq Ahmed Dar, said, "I used AK-47 to fire at security forces." Indeed, he was let off because the state showed no interest in the case. And here's what the judge said, and this was in 2006 or so. Under the UPA, allegations against accused are serious, said the judge. Crimes carry punishment of death sentence. Prosecution shows total disinterest in the case. This is Justice N.D. Vani, who wrote the bail order. After this, viewers, this man became very rich, began to own huge amounts of properties. And it is only now, in the last few years, that he's back in jail on a PMLA charge. Nothing to do with the Holocaust. Despite this damning indictment of his government, the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh rolled out the red carpet for Yasin Malik, viewers, who was the putative boss of Butcher of Hindu, Bitta Karate, or Farooq Ahmed Dar. And now when the party has trivialized the 1990 Hindu genocide in Kashmir, let me tell you, viewers, this travesty continues. This is what the Congress said. It played down the genocide of Hindus just 2 days back. I want to open this up. I want to go straight across before I get into more of the hard facts, which I will unroll, viewers, in a few moments. I want to bring in Aarti Tikoo, senior journalist, whose brother recently was also the subject of terror threats. Sushil Pandit, activist, who's also faced the brunt of this pogrom. I want to first begin with you, Sunanda Vashisht, a columnist who is not alien to the suffering either. Aarti Tikoo, MJ Akbar narrated this to Mr. Ganju. Are you at all surprised that political interests would have been put above and beyond the interests of the safety of Kashmiri Hindus? Can you hear me? Are you there? Okay, we might be having a few problems getting across to her. Yes, Mr. Pandit, let me ask the same question of you.
Yes, of course, because Hindu lives were expendable, and we've always been sacrificed at the altar of political equations, agendas of alliances, all kinds of deal making, because priority in Kashmir across governments, across coalitions, across prime ministers, across parties, in the entire political system, the priority in Kashmir is to win hearts and minds of the jihadis. This is the bottom line. And therefore, even if they have unleashed a genocide, because it will come in the way of winning hearts and minds, you have to whitewash it, you have to prevaricate about it, you have to lie about it, you have to deny it. And this is what has been happening for the last 3 decades. And denying the genocide leads to denying justice to the victims and survivors, then so be it. Denying the genocide even leads to patronizing the Hurriyat, which supervised this genocide, then so be it. And governments across parties and coalitions and prime ministers have patronized Hurriyat, spending hundreds of crores every year. And if that means let in likes of Yasin Malik and Bitta Karate and Gilani and Mirwais and everybody else soaked in our blood become tycoons, be let off without even a trial, then so be it. And if it means, and this is, mind you, I mean, it takes the cake, fighting the violent jihad with so-called mainstream soft separatists who are their votaries, then so be it. Because this is what we have witnessed. You know, this drama, this hypocrisy, this perversion has been going on for the last 3 decades, and we are the smallest of the victims and the smallest of the price that Indian state and successive political parties have paid. They have paid bigger price.
Yes.
So we don't count for anything.
Don't count for anything. That's the overwhelming feeling, viewers. And Aarti Tikoo, had begun with you, couldn't get through to you. Vijay Kumar Ganju, the son of Justice Neelkant Ganju, one of the first to have been killed in this pogrom, in this Holocaust, said that in January 1988, Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was on a visit to China, and this was something that was told to him by M.J. Akbar. And he said, people asked him on the plane, as you know, informal press conferences were still allowed back then, what is happening in Kashmir? And the then Prime Minister replied and said, situation is not good. We're also worried and concerned. Ultimately, he said, but what can we do? After all, he is a friend. Reference was to Farooq Abdullah. Are you at all surprised that political expediency, that appeasement was placed so high above the lives of Kashmiri Hindus?
Rahul, absolutely not surprised, because I am a witness of whatever happened in 1989-90, and I remember very clearly one of the instrumental or one of the most critical events of the time was when Mufti Saeed's daughter was kidnapped by JKLF terrorists. And the government capitulated to those terrorists, and that was a moment when it became very clear to Kashmiri Pandits that we were a dispensable community. We did not matter to Rajiv Gandhi, who was supposedly the champion of the community because he came from a Kashmiri Pandit family himself. His mother, whom we called Durga, whom we saw as a savior, was supposed to protect us, but we knew right then that neither Rajiv Gandhi nor VP Singh nor Mufti Muhammad Saeed nor Farooq Abdullah, all of them were part of the ruling elite in one or the other way. Whether it was Rajiv and Farooq's collaboration together, or VP Singh and Mufti Saeed's collaboration together, it did not matter to any of them that, you know, there was this indigenous Hindu community with a background, with a history of 5,000 years. It did not matter to anyone. In fact, they were part of the entire conspiracy against Kashmiri Hindus. Now I'm saying this with a lot of responsibility, that there was a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy and the system was part of it. Especially Farooq Abdullah, especially people in the VP Singh government, especially Rajiv Gandhi's coterie, they were part of this conspiracy against Kashmiri Hindus, the ethnic cleansing and genocide that we were subjected to. But more than that, I would really say that it was the later on this liberal cabal surrounding Rajiv Gandhi even after his assassination later, which perpetuated the narrative, the fabricated narrative, the myth, the lies and deception about the ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Pandits. They pinned it on Governor Jagmohan because, mind you, it was Rajiv Gandhi and Farooq Abdullah were friends. They were very close. And Farooq Abdullah hated Jagmohan. He hated Jagmohan because Jagmohan was the only person in the administration, in the system, who had been continuously writing, consistently, persistently writing to the government of India, to the central government, and telling them, informing them that Pakistan is up to something, the Islamists and Jihadis in Kashmir are up to something, the separatists, the Muslim United Front, of which Jamaat-e-Islami was a constituent, that they were up to something, but all his warnings were completely overlooked and ignored. So they were complicit, this entire cabal was complicit because they then perpetuated this myth, this conspiracy theory that it was Jagmohan, it was Governor Jagmohan who drove out Kashmiri Hindus, who forced them out to leave Kashmir.
Well, the words that have been used was a fabricated narrative by Aarti Tikoo. And she goes on to say that this was nothing less than a conspiracy. Dr. Ranganathan, I believe that you've also been able to watch this movie, one of the first to have watched it at a private screening. We have, of course, the Congress spokesperson, Mr. Jindal, who's been raising his hand and wants to get in, but I'll bring him in just a few moments. Dr. Ranganathan.
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. Yes, I have watched it. And all I can say is, Rahul, that the Kashmir Files to me is like a mirror. For the victims and the uninformed, it reflects truth and reality, while for the perpetrators and the enablers, it reflects shame and guilt. We live in a nation of broken mirrors, Rahul, where you possess neither a shadow nor a reflection if you are a Kashmiri Hindu. You don't exist after you die. We live in a nation that waits for death to rid us of our remembrances. Kashmir Files has changed that, and that is why so many are rattled. It is not just a film. It is a Proustian collection of memories and remembrances of Girija, of Ganju, of Dinanath, played amazingly by Anupam Kher. His words, his lament, they are testament to the power of language and imagery. They survive beyond him, beyond us. Hearing him, one felt loss for hope, wondering whether that fabled arc of moral universe would ever bend towards justice for the Kashmiri Hindus. Remember, Rahul, that 3 years ago the Supreme Court diabolically, and I choose my words very carefully, diabolically rejected reopening cases of criminal atrocities against Kashmiri Hindus because it quoted, too much time had elapsed. That's correct. Justice is now to be weighed against time. Rahul, governments come and go and we shout and we make 100 excuses, but we can't get away from that fact that 7 lakh Kashmiris are in exile. Mind turns numb at the very thought that a nation is going about its business for 30 years. While 500,000 Hindus have been reduced to refugees in their own land, we are the only large economy in the world that allows this, across parties, across governments, right or left or center, as Sushil said. Only 520 Kashmiri Hindus have been brought home since Article 370 was abrogated in 2019. Making Kashmir Files tax-free is great. It really is. I commend the politicians and chief ministers who have done this. But remember your dharma. It is to make sure 7 lakh Kashmiri Hindus are brought home. And time is running out, Rahul. That totem of the left, Arundhati Roy, once cushioned the crimes of the Maoists by calling them Gandhis with guns. Well, Kashmiri Hindus are the Gandhis without guns. And that is the singular reason why no one cares for their plight in this nation. Rahul, a refugee accepts his fate and the humiliation that comes along with it. For he must worry about his new life. He forgets how to complain. And that is a fatal mistake, because in this nation, complaints are heard through gun, not grammar. This nation believes inaction is a medicine. It believes time heals. It believes wounds do not fester. It believes the exiled never return. As I said, we are a nation that waits for death to rid us of our remembrances. Rahul, just 20 seconds. They call Kashmir the Switzerland of the East. Wrong! It is a Srebrenica of the East. But they forget that words never die. In times of terror, we wrap them and hide them, like Kashmiri Hindus did. And it has taken 30 years for them to be uttered again. But uttered they have been. And when they echo in the valleys of violence where people only know how to light Molotovs, these very words of Dinanath will make them light diyas again. These very words of Dinanath.
Well, let me bring in Mr. Jindal. Mr. Jindal, the Congress is being accused, its allies, like the National Conference, accused of affecting a major cover-up, which now is becoming impossible for you to continue with, because the truth has leavened really to the surface.
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. And first of all, Dr. Ranganathan, I wish all your words were the epilogue to the movie. It would have made the movie much more interesting, because this Kashmir Files, which is a featured movie, is being made into a documentary. Let me tell you, it is just another means of propaganda, promoting hatred, ethnic nationalism, communalism. It's just distorting facts and exaggerations. I mean, the lust for power, just to distort the idea of India, is being witnessed via this particular movie, a movie which was supposed to be released on 26th of January, finds its way in March. Now, let me talk about the chronology. Now, when you are talking about the Kashmir violence that occurred, it was in response to the Ram Janmabhoomi Nyas that was formed on 18th of December 1985. Following this, the first major form of violence occurred. That was in 1986, that are known as the Anantnag riots. And this was the precursor to formation of MUF and the subsequent elections that occurred. That led to insurgency in 1988. And when you're talking about the first Kashmiri death that occurred in 1989, let me tell you the exact date. It was 14th of September 1989. Tika Lal Taplu was the one who was assassinated. And subsequently, when we are talking about kidnapping of Rubaiya Sayyid, so let me tell you, it was VP Singh government that was in power, not the Rajiv Gandhi government. And then what we saw in 1990, that is 19th of January 1990, the moment Jagmohan becomes the governor, that very day is being celebrated as the Exodus Day. And look at the coincidence that just on 10th of September 1990, the moment of SPA is imposed in Jammu and Kashmir. Just after 2 weeks, we are having a Rath Yatra for the Ram Janmabhoomi in Ayodhya. Now we are talking about all these two issues, they are intertwined. So the idea is somehow to create a ground for an alternate idea of India, and thereby denying all forms of civil and political rights to the Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmiri Hindus. I would again state over here that the state, it simply used Kashmiri Hindus so as to attain their political objective.
Okay, now Mr. Jindal, look what this congressman is doing here. Look what this congressman is doing, and I'm just going to say a few words and I'm going to open this up. This Congress leader has, first of all, viewers, given a complete clean chit to Pakistan. It's not as if the Pakistanis have any interest in Kashmir. It's only the RSS that has interest, according to Mr. Jindal. As he traces the entire movement back to the Ram Janmabhoomi agitation. He has trivialized a Holocaust, which is a crime in itself. Are we saying that these people were not butchered, that they left home because they were participating in some grand propaganda to reduce themselves to victimhood so that it would suit the RSS? What nonsense. Legitimizing separatism and blaming Hindus for their own.
No, I'm simply putting the right
No, Mr. Jindal. No, Mr. Jindal. You are tonight. I'm sorry to say. Look, I don't want to. Look, I don't want to.
I have never.
Mr. Jindal, your entire diatribe this evening is a pathetic attempt to insulate
That's a
two
truth,
families. two families from the blowback. Dr.
Rahul,
Ranganathan,
I need to come in.
Yes, and Sunanda Vashisht, as well as Sushil Pandit and Ms. Tikku, all of them in that order. Yes, Doctor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rahul. Mr. Jindal, I have to say this. You have a right to your view, and I've heard you and you heard me without any interruption, but I am truly shocked and saddened by your views. Because when you say that this film is based on propaganda, right as one of our fellow panelists out here is a member of the family of the victim, Mr. Ganju, who was a telecommunications engineer, and he hid in a barrel of rice. He was betrayed by his Muslim neighbor. The terrorists came, they shot at the barrel of rice and they fed the rice filled with blood to his wife. This is not propaganda. Another instance, the Nadi Marg massacre, where 23 Kashmiri Hindus were lined up and shot, and when the terrorists were leaving, one of them said, "A child is crying, shut him up." That child became the 24th victim. By dehumanizing them, you are acting, I'm sorry to say, Mr. Jindal, and I choose my words very carefully, like Eichmann. The banality of evil. You have participated in this. That is why I said the Kashmir Files is a mirror.
Well,
for the enablers, and you are an enabler, sir.
Dr. Ranganathan,
it reflects shame and guilt.
The Congress had enablers, and let me just play out this one soundbite, viewers. It will put into context the mindset. And this is Rajiv Gandhi himself, when he enabled virtually the lynching, the mass murder of Sikhs right here in the Union capital. Let's first play that out. Let me play that out.
जब इंदिरा जी की हत्या हुई थी तो हमारे देश में कुछ दंगे फसाद हुए। हमें मालूम है कि भारत की जनता के दिल में कितना क्रोध आया, कितना गुस्सा आया, और कुछ दिन के लिए लोगों को लगा कि भारत हिल रहा है। लेकिन जब भी कोई बड़ा पेड़ गिरता है तो धरती थोड़ी हिलती है।
This, viewers, is the very definition of fascism. But no one in the Lutyens brigade ever called this out. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I can't hear you, Dr. Ranganathan. Yes.
Yes, I would like to just add here.
Yeah.
Just add here that we haven't yet talked about how the 1987 state elections were so comprehensively rigged.
That's true.
They are the ones who are responsible for starting this wave of terrorism, and this has been admitted by none other than the Congress.
Let me also tell you, Dr.
Shashi
Ranganathan,
Tharoor has publicly admitted.
I slightly disagree with these, with an attempt to try and find a trigger. The trigger,
that is also true.
The trigger was bigotry.
Yeah.
And it remains bigotry. It's a hate towards a community.
Rahul?
Yes, Sunanda Vashisht wants to come in. She's been raising her hand. After that, Aarti Tikoo and Mr. Pandit. Yes, Sunanda Vashisht.
The current Kashmir crisis, Rahul, is completely and solely legacy of Rajiv Gandhi's mismanagement and Rajiv Gandhi's conspiracy with Farooq Abdullah. This cannot be denied, and no one can deny this. This gentleman was talking facts. Let me give him some facts. Everyone thinks that December 8th, I applaud you for saying that we should not give dates to say that certain terrorism started on certain day. Lot of people think that December 8, 1989, when Rubaiyat Saeed was kidnapped, was the trigger point. No, it wasn't. Before December 1989, let me inform you, there were 1,600 violent incidents with 351 bomb blasts had already taken place in those 11 months preceding Rubaiyat Saeed's kidnapping. After that, from January 1st to January 19th, facts, I would like somebody to contest me on facts. There were 21 armed attacks and 114 bomb blasts from January 1st to January 19th. What happened, the genocide that happened after January 19th. We're not even talking about that because that is already in public domain. Here is one small point I would like to tell. The entire administration had capitulated such a point, Rahul, that when Shabir Ahmed Shah, the dreaded terrorist, these people, Congress and all these people, they call him Mandela of Kashmir. Remember, Shabir Shah is Mandela and Yasin Malik is Gandhi. They called him Mandela of Kashmir. You know, on September 1989, when on the IP's tip-off, when he was going to be arrested, Srinagar DC and Anantnag DC refused to sign the warrant of detention. Nobody came into the court, before the court, to represent the state.
Yes.
The Advocate General said that he will not come, and he gave the authority to someone else, a junior, and the junior didn't show up. Basically, no one appeared on behalf of the state. That is capitulation of state. Lok Sabha elections of November 22, 1989, this Congress spokesperson, let me inform him that Sopore is the hometown of Ghulam Rasool Kar, who was the cabinet minister of the state government at that time. And all these incidents are given in Jagmohan's letter that he wrote to Rajiv Gandhi. In his hometown, 5 votes were cast. 5 votes. Nobody took him to task. Nobody said anything. In Patan, under Iftikhar Hussain Ansari, who was the member of Congress at that time, not a single vote was cast. If that is not collaboration with terrorists, what is? And then Rubaya Said, everybody knows about Rubaya Said and terrorists who were released at that time. 4 Rubaya Said released, 70 dreaded terrorists were released by Farooq Abdullah. One of those terrorists went on, Dawood Khan, I think is his name, he went on to become, from Gandarbal area, he went on to become the commander-in-chief of Al-Bakr. Rahul, you are also a student of Kashmir. You will remember those names.
Yes.
Al-Bakr was at that time a terrorist organization. He got 2,500 Kashmiri youth and he mobilized them. These were the initial people who had contacts with Pakistan at that point. They had direct contact with Pakistan. Even before Rubaya Said kidnapping, 70 dreaded terrorists had been released who were clearly on Pakistan payroll. And this information had been sent to Rajiv Gandhi. This had been sent to Rajiv Gandhi. This information had been sent to him. He did not do a thing. If this is not a conspiracy, I don't know what is.
Very well elaborated.
Can I reply?
Yes. No, 1 second. I'll bring you in. Let the others have their turn. Then you can reply all you want, sir.
Rahul.
You know, I was just given a list of dates by this Congress apologist. I must remind everyone, including him, it was 2nd of December 1989 that VP Singh government took reins of India. In 1989,
Yeah.
VP Singh, 2nd of December.
Yes.
And it was on 8th of December that Mufti Muhammad Saeed, his home minister's daughter Rubia Saeed, was kidnapped. Do you think in just 1 week this militancy evolved and matured into this incident? Let me give you the first incident of terrorism in Kashmir. This was night of 31st July 1988 when the Central Telegraph Office was bombed in Srinagar. And weeks later, the DIG's house, DIG Watali's house, was shot at by 4 terrorists, one of whom was shot dead in retaliatory fire. And then night curfew was clamped on Srinagar. This is 31st of July 1988.
You can go back to 1986 as well.
I can. And Anantnag riots was staged by Congress State President Mufti Muhammad Saeed, which is why he was sacked from the Congress.
Now, here you come up with a new conspiracy.
What new conspiracy? You know, Anantnag is his hometown.
Yes, was a conspiracy.
400 homes were gutted,
Rahul.
Now,
which
this
is why he had to
this
leave
no
Congress and
hypocrisy.
join VP Singh.
Absolutely
I don't
not.
know where you were. Were you born?
The Ram
Do you
Janmabhoomi
know
Nyas
anything
was
about
the reason why
Kashmir?
JKLF
Ram Janmabhoomi movement was parallelly moving.
Please do not.
It had nothing to do with Kashmir.
No,
On
absolutely
26th
not.
of February, the Anantnag riots burnt and singed Hindus of Kashmir.
Bringing about a false narrative. So
What false narrative? These are dates, these are names, these are incidents.
But India is
You are a liar, you have lead in your soul, you can't see the truth and you can't stomach the truth. And yet, you shamelessly stonewall these facts.
No more use of romanticism and literature.
There is no romanticism. We have suffered this.
All Kashmiris are terrorists.
You are an armchair apologist of Congress, and shame on you.
All you want to do is bring about a cultural
Shame
divide,
on you.
divide the entire nation.
Read up.
Bring about a
Go, no,
fascist
see
state.
the film, talk to victims.
Absolutely
If you have any
not.
soul left, unless you've sold it to your Congress mentors.
Irrespective of your own political objectives and your last.
I am not in any political party and I have no political objectives, unlike you.
Let's talk about
you have to lick the boots of your masters, defend them, apologize for them, and that is what you do for a living.
Human rights.
Shame on you.
Absolutely. The same
yes, absolutely shame on you. Thanks for agreeing with me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Now let me tell you, viewers, romanticism of terrorists. I'm going to show you some pictures. And that is going to show you how terrorists are romanticized. There is Dr. Manmohan Singh with Yasin Malik. Now, if anyone has doubts that Yasin Malik was invigorated by something that was happening in Ayodhya, you've got to be completely bonkers. And look at these pictures, viewers. Meetings between opposition leaders with separatists, and I'm not talking about too far back in time. In fact, viewers, whether it was the NDA or the UPA, they've all engaged these separatists. Times Now exposed this racket in 2017 when we broke a story. One second, Mr. Jindal, just relax, calm down, calm down. Look, unlike you, we are not biased here. We're not biased here. We don't have any political affiliations. Most of us are co-travelers on the road to perdition and having fled or lost somebody, unlike you, who can sit here and smile and laugh and think it's all a great joke.
Because that's what I see.
Right, that's what you see. You're so heartless, you're so insensitive, you're so venal, sir. You are today delighting in the pain of people who have lost loved ones. Where have you left your soul?
Where are all these narratives when the Godhra riots occur?
Oh gosh.
Where are all these pictures when the Godhra
Aarti
riots
Tikoo,
occur?
please.
What about the
Would you
Prime
like to
Minister?
respond?
Isn't he
Actually, don't
also?
respond. Would you like to have your say?
Rahul,
is from
Rahul,
she will tell
yeah.
you that
Rahul, you know, this is the reason why the Congress party is today completely decimated, because they've been peddling fake narratives. They have been whitewashing the crimes of their own vote bank, which is the Muslim vote bank. But I want to go back to the main question. Terrorism didn't actually start in 89-90. It did not even start in 86. It actually started in the early 70s. Who is Yasin Malik? He is a pioneer member of Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front. Who killed Ravindra Mhatre? Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front. Who hijacked the Fokker aircraft, which was taken to Pakistan, Hashim Qureshi and the gang? Who were they? Who is Maqbool Butt? Who are these people who call themselves freedom fighters of Kashmir? They're nobody, from their perspective, they were nobody. They were probably Indian agents, right? Yasin Malik was an Indian agent. Bitta Karate was an Indian agent. All these people who massacred Kashmiri Hindus and who killed Indian officers were all Indian agents. So it's a shame that this Congress spokesperson on this panel today does not know history of India, does not know history of JKLF, does not know history of hijackings and rapes and murders. So it's a shame. Second, if these people do not even know who killed their own officers, Ravindra Mhatre in London, then they should not even be representing their party. This is precisely the reason that Congress party is decimated today. This is precisely the reason that nobody has confidence in the Congress party's leadership today, because all they have been doing
the Congress party's leadership is very fine.
Rajiv Gandhi, all they have been doing in the last 32 years, all they have been doing is peddling lies. They have been peddling a narrative which has been directly imported from their masters in Islamabad and Rawalpindi. They have been importing a narrative which has been imported from London and DC. These are the people who are in bed with Islamists These are the people who are in bed with the enemies of India. It's a shame. It's
Let
a
me
shame
tell you
that they don't know their own history.
One second, let me tell you. You know, Mr. Jindal talked about Gujarat rats. He talked about Godhra, he talked about Gujarat rats. Viewers, let me just give you a small example. 9 cases relating to the Gujarat riots of 2002. 6 have seen judgments being delivered. Whether it was a BJP government in the state or at the center. Several 100 people have been convicted, are in jail. Commissions were set up. Of course, the Godhra train burning remained a black hole. No one really wanted to talk about it, where 70 Hindus were burnt alive, roasted. But no one ever wants to talk about this, especially not, of course, the Congress party. But let me also tell you, viewers, no commission of inquiry has ever been set up to look at the Hindu Holocaust in Kashmir. Not one. We've had commissions set up for discussing emoluments of BJP and Congress and SP and all sorts of Lok Sabha members, MPs and Rajya Sabha MPs. Everyone has had commissions on very many things. Some very trivial and frivolous, but not a genocide in this country. Can you believe that? And this gentleman from the Congress party, Mr. Jindal, comes out and says, exactly. I mean, what am I supposed to say to him? Let me bring in Sheikh Amir of the Congress. Sheikh Amir, let me bring in Nilufar Masood of the National Conference. Nilufar Masood, there was an opportunity for you to deliver justice by going up in appeal against verdicts that were delivered, or making sure that the probes were being done with some application and without any prejudice. Why didn't you do it? What stopped you?
Rahul, I have been listening very patiently. Just give me 30 seconds.
Good, it's about time you heard.
Let me put my things beforehand. Everyone here has paid a bigger price. It's not only the Pandits. We have been facing all the brutalities.
So they must be denied justice because people have also paid a price. Of course, everyone has paid a price, but it has happened in spite of you, not despite you.
Of the terrorism. Kashmir Files, to me, exposes the communal mindset which believes in violence, disturbing the secularism, and it is a pathetic attempt to distort the history itself.
Wow.
Why is today Mrs. Nirmala Khanna in the court? Why has she knocked the doors of the justice? If the whole story is based upon the truth, if it had been there, she would not have knocked the doors of the justice. It clearly shows. And you have been talking about Dr. Farooq Ahmed Dar. He was the person who raised this thing that he is not ready to accept Jagmohan as the governor. Because after him, change of violent massacres took place.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about the
You could never return when you did return to power.
Why don't you talk about those
and
people
institute any commissions
who
you found
were
that
mourning the death of the Mirwais and they were killed in the broad daylight?
Sunanda Vashisht.
Is that not genocide?
Sunanda Vashisht.
Is that not a genocide? That is a genocide.
Spokesperson for National Conference, did she think Heather was
I'm not the spokesperson.
Did she think Heather was a propaganda movie? Heather showed Kashmir, which had no Hindus.
You are putting Kashmir Pandits against the Muslims itself.
That is not true. That is, tell me one incident that is wrong.
Application moved by the PP Kapoor. What did he say?
Don't talk rhetoric. Tell me one incident that did not happen.
Have been killed. And you're talking about the genocide. Which genocide?
Which genocide? That's it, viewers. Which genocide? Which genocide? That's what has come right through. Genocides happen everywhere else. Not in Kashmir.
It is not you.
Not in Kashmir. Not in Kashmir. One second. One second. Yeah, Dr. Ranganathan wanted to come in here. Yes.
Rahul. Madam, we've been listening to you. I did not interrupt you. Thank you.
Well, if you don't believe that a genocide happened, there's not even a conversation that can be had. So I don't know what we need to come out to you for.
I'll just point
Rahul, I need to come in here because I've been...
Why is Nirmala
compared
Khanna in the
Kashmir to Srebrenica. You know, let me remind you, Srebrenica happened in 99. And when there was an exodus from Kosovo,
conference of the Jagmohan?
The NATO fighters took off from their Italian bases.
Exactly.
And they bombed. They bombed Kosovo for 20 days between 20th of March and 10th of April. Nobody fired a bullet when we were chased out of Kashmir. Not even a police station. Not even a detachment of army. Not even home guards were let out to save us. Srebrenica had at least the comfort of NATO planes punishing the genociders. In Kashmir, people were allowed a free run of our homes and our temples and our lives.
This is what you have been
That is the
doing on the
difference.
national media.
Srebrenica
I'm ready to say that you don't
thereafter was redeemed and people went back to their homes. These are flourishing nations now. There is no genocide unpunished in Srebrenica. In Kashmir, not a single victim has received justice. Not a single murder has been tried. Not a single rape has been prosecuted. That is the difference between Srebrenica and Kashmir. Srebrenica is far better off.
Okay.
Even Bangladesh democracy is better off. Their war criminals are being hanged 45 years after their crime. In Kashmir, they are dying like tycoons in their bed at the age of 94. They should have been hanged at the nearest street pole. That is the difference.
Okay, 1 second. Let's lower this advocate's ranting. Please. She's just not even accepting that there was a genocide. So where are we going to ever have a conversation? These are the people who swarm to uphold the law. That's their mentality, viewers. Think about the terrorists out there, those Islamists. And I want to bring in Sheikh Amir. Sheikh Amir, at least you will not heap indignity upon those who have died. At least you will acknowledge that they were killed because of Islamist hate. Or will you also deny that any such pogrom took place?
Thank you very much, Rahul. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I was patiently hearing, so I don't have much to say because even if I want to say, because you won't let me talk because you have many other panelists who are talking like BJP spokespersons, and you said that you are not biased.
Can I ask you, Mr. Amir, just a basic question. First, do you agree that there was a Holocaust, that there was a pogrom, that people lost their lives and they were thrown out of the valley?
Rahul,
can I ask you this? Can you just answer a simple question first? Then we'll establish whether we can have a debate or not.
See, I feel the pain. I'm audible.
Yeah, you are. You feel
Rahul. It's not about denying. I feel the pain of Kashmiri Pandits, the way they have suffered in Kashmir and after the exodus. But you have to understand.
So there was.
It's not about us.
No, hang on.
Yes.
No, 1 second. What was the exodus? First of all, I don't like that word, but nonetheless, what was it due to?
Don't put Rahul.
Sheikh Amin, I'm asking you, what was it due to, sir?
I was listening to you patiently.
What was it due to?
It's not
Why
about
did they leave their homes?
I'm talking. Let me talk. It's not about us and they. It's about Kashmiris. They are Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmiri Muslims. All are Kashmiris. After the Kashmiri Pandit exodus, they left Kashmir and yes, they were killed. And
how many? No, hang on, Sheikh Ahmed. Then let me ask you. They left their homes. 1 second. Did you ever go to the people who are occupying their homes and tell them, can you come out of these homes, leave them, and hand them back to the people? Welcome them back. Go to Delhi. Go to Jammu. Go wherever they are. Bring them back. Welcome them back. Did you?
Rahul, you are talking about Kashmir files.
I'll tell you what they did, viewers. This is a gentleman called Sheikh Amir. He's the leader of the Congress. His boss was chief minister in 2006. Now let me tell you. You see, I've listened, and I'm not going to keep quiet now. Ghulam Nabi Azad then was the chief minister. The court came out and said, and this is what the court said, viewers. This is what the court said, and I just want to quote the court, and this is Justice N.D. Wani. He said allegations against accused are serious. He acknowledged, crimes carry punishment of death sentence. Prosecution shows total disinterest in the case. What would you have done, viewers, had you realized under your watch the prosecution was not bothered about bringing to justice the killers of thousands, the perpetrators of a Holocaust? You would have immediately gone, ordered a fresh investigation, taken action against those who were not interested. You would have either sacked them or jailed them. What did you do? You looked the other way. You looked the other way because you had a friend. And this is the time, viewers, same time, when Manmohan Singh was rolling out the red carpet for Bitta Karate's boss in Delhi. And they had a government. This was their double engine. It was their double road roller. Double road roller. A massacre machine. That's what happened. I'll leave it at that. Dr. Ranganathan, yes, 30 seconds. I've really run out of time. Yes.
Rahul, I'm absolutely certain with what I've heard today that had Hitler killed 6 million Hindus, not Jews, these Congress leaders and National Conference leaders would have denied even the Holocaust.
Well,
and that is the bare fact.
It has actually happened. People have denied Holocausts. And this one for sure, viewers, this one for sure. And I'll tell the NDA tonight, no point giving tax-free movies. Go first. All your chief ministers line up tomorrow. Go to these camps. Speak to these people and institute a commission. Begin. Do it. Then talk.